Pretty much every culture has that classic hero story, right? Someone who goes through incredible trials, inspires a whole community, and just changes the world. Well, today we're going to dive into one of the most influential of these journeys ever, the life of the Prophet Muhammad, what's known as the Sirah. And what's amazing is that this story, it doesn't start with a big crowd or a huge event. It starts with just one man, totally alone, looking for some peace and quiet. So let's really get into this. Long before any kind of divine message, Muhammad he was deeply troubled by what he saw going on around him in Mecca. You've got idol worship, all sorts of social injustices, and it just didn't sit right with him. So what did he do? He'd just leave. He'd go up into the mountains for days at a time, find a cave, and just think. And this wasn't him just running away from it all. It was a genuine search for some kind of deeper truth. And it's right there, in that total solitude, in a place called the Cave of Hira, that everything changes. History itself just pivots on this one moment. He's 40 years old, he's on one of his usual retreats, and then he's visited by this incredibly powerful presence. It's the angel Gabriel. And Gabriel comes with the very first words of a message that was going to echo for centuries to come. Now, think about this for a second. The very first command he gets from God, what do you think it would be? It's not fight, it's not conquer, it's not even believe. It's iqra, which means read or recite. And get this, in a society where most people couldn't even read, the very first word of this new faith is a command to seek knowledge, to engage with the divine word. That one word, iqra, literally set the stage for everything that followed. Okay, so you don't get a message like that and just keep it to yourself, right? It's not meant for solitude. So he starts to preach publicly, right there in Mecca. He's talking about one God, about social justice, about being accountable for your actions after you die. And you can imagine, this was a radical idea. It was a direct threat to the whole power structure, the money, the traditions of Mecca's ruling class, the Quraysh. And their response? Oh, it was swift, and it was brutal. The first Muslims went through some intense persecution. We're not just talking about some name-calling here, no way. We're talking about slaves like Bilal being tortured under the burning desert sun. We're talking about whole families being completely cut off. No trade, no talking to them, nothing. Even the Prophet himself had people throwing filth and thorns in his path, or even worse, disgusting camel entrails on him while he was in the middle of prayer. This was way beyond just opposition. It was a vicious test of their conviction, right from the get-go. And these aren't just stories in a book, These were real people, suffering for what they believed in. There's this one account from Khabab, one of the first converts. He remembers going to the Prophet just completely exhausted and overwhelmed by the abuse, and basically asking for some relief. It really shows you that their faith was literally forged in the fire of these trials. So this goes on for 13 years. 13 years of relentless pressure. And then it hits a breaking point. The persecution gets so bad that they're literally plotting to assassinate him. It's at this point that divine permission finally comes through for the whole community to just leave, to leave their homes, their money, everything they've ever known, and migrate. This event is called the Hijra, and it's crucial to understand this wasn't them running away in defeat, not at all. It was a strategic move to save the community and build a future somewhere else. And this journey, wow, it was incredibly dangerous. The Prophet and his best friend, Abu Bakr, they literally sneak out of Mecca in the middle of the night. There's a huge bounty on their heads. They end up hiding for 3 days in a cave while search parties are all over the mountains looking for them. It's only after that close call that they finally make the long, tough journey north to a city called Medina, where they'd been invited to start fresh. Can you just imagine the tension in that cave? The people hunting them are right outside. They're at the mouth of the cave. Abu Bakr is whispering, totally terrified they're about to be found. And in this moment of pure life or death danger, what does the Prophet say? He doesn't panic. He's calm. He says, "Be silent, O Abu Bakr, to the third of whom is Allah." It's just this incredible statement of complete trust and faith when everything looks hopeless. But, this journey was also heartbreaking. As he's leaving, he looks back at Mecca, his home, the city he loved, and he says, "By Allah, you are the best of Allah's land, and had I not been driven out from you, I would not have left." That just hits you, right? It shows this wasn't an easy choice. He was being forced out. He was a refugee, looking for safety. It just adds this really profound human layer of emotion to the whole thing. So, arriving in Medina, that's a whole new chapter. Now the challenge isn't just about surviving day to day, it's about building something from scratch. Think about it. How do you take a group of refugees from Mecca and merge them with the people already living in Medina? How do you forge one community? And how are you going to protect this brand new, fragile society from the very powerful enemies you just escaped from?
Well, the first step he took was just brilliant. He established something called the Mu'aka, which basically means brotherhood. He literally paired up each migrant family from Mecca with a host family in Medina. And they weren't just roommates, he declared them brothers. They shared everything, their homes, their food, their businesses. In one single move, this act wove two totally different groups into one unified community. It was all built on this idea of solidarity.
But of course, the leaders back in Mecca weren't just going to let this new community thrive in peace. No way. A major conflict was pretty much inevitable. And that first huge confrontation happens at a place called Badr. This was it. This was the ultimate test. Could this tiny, brand new community actually stand up to the full military power of the Quraysh? And when you look at the numbers, it's just staggering. I mean, it's insane. On one side, you had the Muslims, about 313 men, most of them poor, barely any armor or weapons to speak of. And on the other side, the Quraysh army from Mecca, around 1,000 men, fully equipped, professional soldiers. They were outnumbered 3-1. On paper, this should have been an absolute slaughter, no question. But this was so much more than just a military fight. For the Muslims, it was completely spiritual. You can hear it in the prayer the Prophet made during the battle. He's pleading, "O Allah, if this small band of Muslims is destroyed, you will not be worshipped on earth." It shows you just how high the stakes were. It wasn't just about them. It was about the survival of the entire message. And then, against all odds, they won. The tiny Muslim force wanted decisive victory. It was the moment that really put them on the map. But listen, the path forward wasn't just a straight line of easy victories. Not at all. The very next big battle, the Battle of Uhud, was almost a total disaster. What happened was, a group of archers were given a direct order to hold a strategic hill. But when they thought the battle was won, they left their post to go grab spoils of war. Big mistake. It let the Meccan cavalry sweep around and attack the Muslims from behind. It was a brutal, painful setback, but man, it taught them a critical lesson. Discipline and obedience are crucial, especially when you think you're winning. All right, so after years of all this, the struggle, the community building, the conflicts, the journey is finally about to come full circle. The whole balance of power in Arabia has completely flipped. And this leads to the ultimate, final moment of the Prophet's mission. Returning to Mecca, the very city that kicked him out. Just stop and think about this for a second. Remember that tiny group of 313 guys at the Battle of Badr? Okay, now fast forward less than 10 years. The Prophet is now marching towards Mecca, not with a handful of refugees, but at the head of an army of 10,000. I mean, that is just an incredible testament to how much things had changed. So what do you expect to happen now? In most stories, this is the part where the hero gets his revenge on all the people who wronged him, right? But that is not what happened here. Not even close. The Prophet enters Mecca basically without a fight, and what does he do? He declares a general amnesty for everyone. The same people who had tortured him, boycotted his family, tried to kill him, they were all forgiven. It was just this stunning act of mercy that completely cemented his moral authority. And then shortly after that, during his final pilgrimage, he gives what's known as the farewell sermon. And it's not some big victory speech. It's a summary of everything he ever taught. It's like a timeless charter for human rights. He talks about the sanctity of life and property. He says flat out that there's no superiority of an Arab over a non-Arab, that racism has no place. He forbids economic exploitation, and he confirms the rights of women. This wasn't a message just for Muslims. It was a message for all of humanity. So after laying out all of these core principles to this massive crowd, we're talking over 100,000 people, he asked them this one simple, profound question. "O people, have I delivered the message?" He's asking them to be his witness, to testify that his mission, the one that started 23 years ago with him all alone in a cave, was now finished. And the crowd just roared back, "Yes, you have." And that really brings us to the big question, doesn't it? We've just traced this absolutely incredible journey. From one man seeking solitude in a cave, to a persecuted preacher, to the leader of a new community. And finally, to a conqueror who chose mercy over revenge. It's a story of transformation, not just of one person, but of the entire world around him. And it really makes you think, How does a journey that began like that, with one man alone in a cave, end up completely reshaping the course of world history? It just goes to show you the power of a single idea and one person's conviction to literally change everything.